audience. No applause, just silence. And in that silence, something wakes up. A strength that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't perform. You stop asking for permission. You start becoming. The Stoics knew this power begins when expectations die. When you stop chasing validation, you reclaim time, energy, and direction. Most of us carry a soft fantasy: if I hurt enough, someone will notice. They won't, and that's okay. Because the moment you accept it, everything changes. Your self-worth stops depending on applause. Your psychological boundaries get sharp. Your emotional intelligence goes up. Your inner peace returns. Your high-performance mindset finally has room to breathe. You move differently, not to be seen, to be true. Today, I'll show you how to turn that hard truth into power. We'll trade performance for presence, noise for discipline, attention for alignment. Stay to the end. I'll give you 5 quiet habits that turn solitude into strength and make validation irrelevant. No more waiting to be rescued. No more narrating your wounds to be believed. No more pausing your life for permission. Accept that no one cares. Then watch how fast your life becomes yours. From the time we were children, we were trained to believe that if we hurt enough, someone would notice, cry loud enough, and a parent comes running, struggle hard enough, and maybe a teacher, a friend, or a stranger will step in and say, I see you, I care. That conditioning doesn't disappear when we grow up. It buries itself deeper. It becomes an unspoken script. If I suffer, the world will respond. But then life delivers the truth. Your pain is ignored. Your messages go unanswered. Your breakdown happens in silence. And the phone doesn't ring. You look around and realize, not out of cruelty, but out of reality, people are simply consumed by their own battles. And for the first time, the illusion shatters. Your suffering isn't a performance anyone else is watching. This moment hurts. It feels like rejection. It feels like abandonment. But it's not. It's simply gravity. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. The silence becomes your teacher. The indifference becomes your clarity. And clarity is the beginning of power. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors." He was reminding himself daily that the world's attention is not a source of strength, because here's the reality: if you build your self-worth on being seen, you will spend your life feeling invisible. That quiet ache of being overlooked isn't proof that you're worthless. It's proof that you were searching for value in the wrong place. So, what happens when you accept that no one cares? Something unexpected. You stop performing. You stop curating your life as if you're on stage waiting for applause. You stop editing your words, your dreams, your entire identity to make it easier for others to digest. And instead, you start building, quietly, relentlessly, for yourself, not for an audience. This doesn't mean you become bitter. It doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you finally stop outsourcing your worth. You stop expecting the world to pause and hand you comfort just because you're in pain. And in that refusal, you discover a new kind of self-respect. You realize that true emotional intelligence isn't about getting others to validate you. It's about understanding your own inner weather, your own storms, your own light, without depending on someone else to explain it back to you. Carl Jung once said, "The world will ask you who you are. And if you don't know, the world will tell you." But here's the hidden truth. Most people don't even care enough to ask. They don't see you. They see their idea of you. And if you keep performing for their gaze, you lose yourself in their narrative. You become a supporting character in someone else's story, instead of the main character in your own. The pain of realizing no one is coming to save you is heavy. It sinks deep. But once you accept it, something ancient stirs within you. You stop waiting. You stop freezing your life in hopes that someone will notice you're stuck. And you begin to move, not for recognition, not for applause, but because you decide your life is worth moving forward, regardless of who's watching. This is the first rupture, the first break in the old pattern. It feels lonely at first, but it's not loneliness, it's liberation. It's the beginning of psychological boundaries that protect your energy. It's the seed of self-worth that no one else can hand you. It's the foundation of an inner peace that won't be shaken every time someone overlooks you. And that's why the moment you realize no one cares is not the end. It's the beginning. It's the start of a life where your worth is no longer fragile, where your discipline replaces your dependency, and where your strength no longer needs to be seen to exist. At first, realizing no one cares feels brutal. It's like the world just confirmed your deepest fear, that your pain, your effort, your very existence doesn't matter. But here's the paradox. That same indifference that stings is also the key to your freedom. Because once you stop waiting for someone else to notice, you start noticing yourself. Think about how much energy you've wasted trying to be understood, replaying conversations in your head, writing long messages, hoping to finally make someone get it, adjusting your words, your posture, your entire self, just to earn a scrap of validation. Every attempt feels urgent. Every silence from them feels like failure. But in reality, it's just proof of one thing: your worth was hooked to their recognition, not rooted in your own clarity. The Stoics warned against this trap. Epictetus said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." Freedom doesn't come from applause. It comes from the ability to keep walking even when no one claps, to work even when no one notices, to hold your boundaries even when people call you cold. This is where indifference becomes a gift, because when the world doesn't hand you recognition, you learn how to generate it within. You stop chasing the high of being noticed and start cultivating the discipline of being consistent. Instead of asking, "Do they care?" you start asking, "Does this align with who I choose to be?" That shift is massive. It's the shift from being reactive to being grounded, from being fragile to being unshakable. And it's not abstract. It shows up in the smallest daily choices. You begin to say no more often, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for your energy. You stop over-explaining because you realize explanations don't convince anyone who doesn't want to understand. You stop chasing because you finally see that every step toward people who overlook you is a step away from yourself. Clarity doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, almost like the calm after a storm. The tears dry. The begging ends. The need dissolves. And in its place, you feel something new, not happiness, not even relief, but steadiness. This steadiness is your foundation. It's what Stoicism calls inner peace. Not the peace that comes from others being kind to you, but the peace that comes from refusing to be moved by what you can't control. And once you taste that, you never want to go back. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." That awakening is exactly what happens when indifference forces you inward. When the world ignores you, it pushes you back into yourself. And inside, you find the one person who never left you. The truth is, people aren't cruel for not caring. They're simply drowning in their own storms. Just like you've overlooked others while wrestling with your own. And once you see that clearly, something remarkable happens. You stop taking indifference personally. You stop reading it as rejection. You start reading it as reality. And reality, while harsh, is liberating, because it teaches you that your value is not negotiable. It doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's attention span. It doesn't vanish just because someone is too distracted to notice. It's there, rooted, whether they see it or not. That is clarity. And clarity is the soil where self-worth finally grows. So, when you accept that no one cares, don't see it as cruelty. See it as the removal of illusion. See it as the moment you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Because in that shift, you stop being a prisoner of attention and you start becoming the architect of your own freedom. Once you stop waiting for the world to care, you step into a rare kind of strength. At first, it feels lonely, almost empty, like walking into a room where no one notices you. But what begins as emptiness slowly transforms into space, and in that space, something extraordinary happens. Clarity becomes power. Think about it. Most people live clouded by noise. They wake up scrolling, absorbing 1,000 opinions before they've even had coffee. They measure themselves against others, chasing likes, chasing recognition, chasing approval. But clarity, the kind that comes from realizing no one is coming to rescue you, cuts through all of that. It strips away the distractions. It forces you to see what actually matters. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just philosophy, it's survival. Because the moment you internalize that truth, you stop wasting energy trying to bend the world and start focusing on the one thing you can always master: yourself. Clarity shows you where your energy leaks. It reveals the conversations you don't need to enter, the arguments you don't need to win, the people you don't need to chase. It exposes how much time you've lost trying to be seen, when all along the real battle was to see yourself. And with that realization, you stop bleeding energy into black holes. You conserve it. You redirect it. You invest it into building rather than begging. Here's the paradox. The less you explain yourself, the more powerful you feel. The less you depend on others to validate your worth, the more undeniable your presence becomes. People start noticing not because you shouted, but because you stopped shouting. Silence grounded. Confident, silence radiates authority, and the world, whether it admits it or not, respects authority. But clarity doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you move. You no longer make choices out of desperation or fear of rejection. You make them from alignment. Does this decision strengthen me? Does it match who I want to become? If yes, you move. If no, you walk away. That's it. No drama. No overthinking. Just clarity in action. And here's where the real power lies. Clarity kills self-doubt. Not instantly, not magically, but steadily. Each time you honor your truth without waiting for applause, you strengthen your self-trust. And self-trust is the root of all confidence. Because once you know you can rely on yourself, the world can't intimidate you anymore. Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Clarity is that act of making things conscious. It's seeing your patterns for what they are, the chasing, the explaining, the endless waiting for someone to care. And the moment you see them, you can break them. You can rewrite the script. That's what Stoic power really is, not arrogance, not detachment, but sovereignty, a calm, steady presence that doesn't rise and fall with the moods of others, a grounded strength that moves with intention, not reaction. The day you accept no one cares, everything changes because you stop wasting your life auditioning for roles in other people's stories. You step fully into your own. And when you do that, when clarity becomes your foundation, power follows naturally. Not the power to control others, not the power to impress them, but the power to stand unshaken in who you are and to build a life that doesn't crumble when no one is watching. When clarity becomes power, your relationships change whether you intend them to or not. Because the moment you stop chasing validation, you stop playing the role others quietly assign to you. And that shift doesn't go unnoticed. Think about the dynamics you've lived through. The partner who thrived on your constant explanations, the friend who always expected you to smooth over the tension, the colleague who relied on your defensiveness to make themselves look bigger. Every one of those dynamics required your reaction. They needed your energy to survive. But when you stop performing for them, when you stay still, calm, and silent, the stage collapses. They're left standing in front of an empty audience, unsure of what to do next. Some will grow angry. Some will grow distant. Some will even accuse you of being cold, arrogant, or unkind. But that's only because they've lost control over you. This is where you begin to see the hidden truth. Most relationships are built less on love or respect, and more on unspoken agreements of energy exchange. You give them your validation, your attention, your explanations, and in return, they give you what? Usually, inconsistency. Sometimes, manipulation. Sometimes, nothing at all. The Stoics would call this an illusion. Seneca wrote, We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And much of our suffering in relationships comes from imagining that if we just keep giving more words, more patience, more chances, people will finally care. But when you stop imagining and you face reality as it is, everything sharpens. Clarity exposes who truly values you and who only values what they can take from you. And here's the part most people resist. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to believing their excuses or mistaking their inconsistency for care. The curtain has dropped, and the performance is over. This is why relationships often collapse when one person awakens to their own power. It's not because you became cruel. It's because you stopped feeding a system that required your weakness. You stopped handing out free access to your energy. You stopped playing small to keep them comfortable. And once you do that, people either rise to meet your new standards or they fall away. And yes, it hurts when they fall away. The silence of lost connections can feel heavier than the noise of constant drama. But remember, not every absence is a loss. Sometimes it's a clearing. Sometimes it's the space you need for something stronger to grow. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Losing certain people may feel like an impediment, but in reality, it advances you. It clears the path. It shows you who never belonged in your journey beyond the surface. The relationships that survive this shift, the ones that endure your clarity. Those are the ones worth keeping, because they don't fear your silence. They don't need your explanations. They don't rely on your weakness to feel strong. They stand beside you, not above you. And here's the unexpected blessing. Your silence begins to command respect, not because you demanded it, not because you fought for it, but because you stopped giving people the tools to disrespect you. You no longer argue with lies. You no longer beg for loyalty. You no longer over-explain your worth. And in that refusal, you become untouchable. That is how clarity transforms relationships. It doesn't just remove the wrong ones. It refines the right ones. It turns your presence into something rare, something that doesn't need applause to be valuable. And once you carry that presence, people adjust. They either rise or they leave. Either way, you win. One of the harshest truths in life is this: the people who hurt you don't need to keep destroying you. You do it for them every time you replay the betrayal. Every time you draft a message you'll never send. Every time you waste your breath trying to make them see what they never cared to see. That's self-destruction. And it's a cycle. Millions never escape. But here's the breakthrough. The moment you accept no one cares, you finally stop feeding the cycle. You stop handing them the power they were never worthy of. Because every reaction, every defense, every explanation, every plea was oxygen for their fire. And when you cut that supply off, the fire dies. Not instantly, not dramatically, but slowly, inevitably, until nothing is left but smoke. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant is simple. It's not the betrayal that breaks you. It's your endless reaction to it. It's your refusal to let go of the fantasy that someone will come along and make it right. The day you stop expecting that, the day you stop bleeding energy into the void, is the day you begin to heal. And healing, in the Stoic sense, isn't about forgetting. It's about redirecting. The same energy you once wasted on chasing, on proving, on begging, now you channel into building, into discipline, into clarity, into becoming. Think about it. Every time you held back from reacting, every time you swallowed the urge to explain, you weren't just silent, you were training yourself. Training your emotional intelligence. Training your ability to choose long-term dignity over short-term release. That's not weakness. That's strength in its purest form. Because anyone can scream. Anyone can clap back. But not everyone can sit in silence while the storm passes and remain untouched. That's where freedom lies. When you no longer need to prove yourself, you stop being controlled. When you no longer explain yourself, you stop being predictable. When you no longer wait for care that will never come, you stop being trapped. You are no longer the actor on someone else's stage. You are the director of your own life. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Self-destruction is what happens when you keep looking outside for answers. Awakening happens when you look inside and realize you are enough. Your worth isn't up for debate. Your life isn't waiting for applause. It's already yours to build. And here's the most liberating part. Once you stop self-destructing, you become untouchable. Not because pain disappears, not because betrayal stops, but because you finally understand that none of it has the power to define you unless you hand it the keys. Freedom isn't found in revenge. It isn't found in being understood. It's found in silence, in restraint, in the quiet refusal to burn yourself down just to prove your fire existed. That's when everything changes. That's when you stop surviving and start living. Freedom from self-destruction is only the beginning. Once you stop pouring your energy into people who don't care, you suddenly realize how much strength you've been wasting. That energy doesn't vanish, it returns to you. And the question becomes, what will you do with it? The Stoic answer is clear. You turn it into discipline. Because discipline is where true power lives. Noise will tell you that freedom means doing whatever you want. But Stoicism flips that lie on its head. Freedom doesn't come from indulgence. Freedom comes from restraint, from self-mastery, from the ability to rule yourself even when the world is pulling you in 1,000 directions. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "It is not external things that trouble you, but your judgments about them." That's the essence of discipline, not suppressing your emotions, but training your judgments, not letting a careless word dictate your peace, not letting betrayal decide your worth, not letting circumstances command your energy. Discipline becomes your fortress because it builds consistency where chaos used to reign. Think about how much of your past was spent on reaction. You lived in highs and lows, in bursts of anger, in waves of despair, in endless explanations. But when you accept that no one is coming to save you, you stop outsourcing your stability. You build it, brick by brick. routine by routine, decision by decision. Every small act of discipline is a brick in that fortress. Waking up when you said you would, training your body instead of numbing your mind, journaling instead of ranting, walking away instead of arguing. These aren't just habits, they are declarations. Declarations that you refuse to be owned by chaos, by noise, by the weakness of craving validation. And here's the paradox. The discipline that feels heavy in the moment becomes the very thing that makes your life light. Because you no longer stumble from drama to drama, wound to wound. You stand firm, steady, immovable. The storms still come, but you are no longer the tree that bends until it breaks. You are the cliff. Marcus spoke of the one that tames the fury of the waves by refusing to collapse. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Discipline is how you bring the unconscious into the light. It's how you stop letting your impulses control you. It's how you stop mistaking reaction for strength. Every time you hold back from explaining, from chasing, from breaking your own standards, you reclaim authority over your own mind. And when you live with discipline, something shifts in how others see you. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to manipulate. You stop being the person who can be pulled into endless cycles of chaos. Instead, you radiate something rare in today's world: steadiness. And steadiness commands respect, not because you demanded it, but because you embody it. This is why discipline is your fortress. It protects you not only from external chaos, but from the inner chaos that once consumed you. It guards your peace. It sharpens your mind. It makes your silence louder than any argument, your presence heavier than any noise. And in that discipline, you discover a truth. Most people never touch inner peace isn't passive. It's earned. Earned in silence. Earned in restraint. Earned in the daily decision to master yourself instead of waiting for others to care. Discipline doesn't just protect you, it transforms you. The more you practice silence, restraint, and consistency, the more you realize that nothing outside of you has the same grip it once had. You become untouchable, not because life stops testing you, but because your response no longer depends on what others do. That is what it means to be unshakable. Think about the old version of you. One insult could ruin your day. One unanswered message could spiral into sleepless nights. One betrayal could drag you into months of self-doubt. That wasn't weakness, it was conditioning. You believed your peace depended on how others treated you. But now, discipline has rewired you. Inner peace is no longer negotiable. It's not something given to you. It's something you carry, everywhere, unbroken. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. That is the power of sovereignty. You can't control betrayal. You can't control disrespect. But you can refuse to let those things decide your inner state. And once you grasp this, your entire presence changes. People start to notice. They test you with the same provocations. But this time, you don't flinch. They expect the old version of you, the one who argued, explained, defended, but that person is gone. Your silence is heavier than their words. Your calm is sharper than their cruelty. And slowly, they realize they can't move you the way they used to. This is where respect enters the picture. Not the superficial respect of flattery or fear, but the kind that comes when someone recognizes an immovable force. The colleague who once mocked you now hesitates before speaking. The friend who thrived on gossip now grows quiet in your presence. Even the partner who once played games senses that the script doesn't work anymore. It's not that you've become cold, it's that you've become centered. And centered people make others adjust. That's why true power is never loud, it's magnetic. It pulls people into alignment or pushes them away, without you lifting a finger. But here's the part most people miss. Becoming unshakable doesn't mean you stop feeling. You still feel disappointment, betrayal, anger, even sadness. The difference is that those feelings no longer control your actions. They rise, they pass, they teach, but they don't dictate. That is emotional intelligence in its highest form. The ability to sit with your emotions without becoming enslaved by them. Carl Jung said, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." You've walked through that inferno. You've been broken, abandoned, misunderstood. But instead of letting those fires consume you, you turned them into discipline, and from discipline into calm. And now, your calm is your weapon. People will call you mysterious. They'll call you distant. Some may even resent you for no longer being predictable. But what they're really feeling is the discomfort of losing control. And that's not your problem. That's their lesson. Your only responsibility is to remain steady, to remain sovereign, to remain true to yourself. Being unshakable doesn't mean life is easy. It means you've trained your mind to stay calm when life isn't, and that presence, the presence of someone who cannot be moved by noise, is one of the rarest and most powerful forces in the world. There comes a point in this journey where everything shifts. You've stopped chasing. You've built discipline. You've become unshakable. And now you arrive at the deepest transformation. You no longer look outward for strength. You become your own source. Most people never reach this stage because they're still secretly hoping someone will step in, someone who finally understands, someone who finally validates, someone who finally gives them permission to rise. But when you stop expecting that, something extraordinary happens. You give that permission to yourself. And in that moment, you realize you were never powerless. You were just waiting for the wrong people to hand you what was always yours. The Stoics knew this truth well. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery doesn't mean you control everything that happens. It means you no longer hand over control of your emotions, your worth, or your direction to anyone else. You stop outsourcing your identity. You stop letting the applause or silence of others decide your next move. You move because you choose to. This is what self-reliance really looks like, not arrogance, not isolation, but sovereignty. You still love. You still connect. You still allow people into your life, but your foundation no longer depends on them. If they leave, you stand. If they misunderstand, you remain steady. If they betray you, you rebuild without collapse. That is freedom. That is true autonomy. And here's the paradox. When you stop needing people to care, your presence actually becomes more powerful, because now everything you do comes from authenticity, not desperation. You're not performing. You're not proving. You're not explaining. You're simply being, and people feel that they can't always describe it, but they sense the weight of someone who doesn't need the crowd. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's the essence of this shift. You stop talking about who you are. You stop arguing for your worth. You simply embody it, quietly, consistently, and in that embodiment, you become undeniable. This is the ultimate irony. The world finally starts noticing you the moment you stop needing it to, not because you begged for attention, but because you built something unshakable within. Your silence speaks louder. Your calm commands more respect. Your discipline carries more weight than any dramatic display ever could. And the best part, you feel different inside. The loneliness that once haunted you now feels like solitude, and solitude feels like home. The silence that once scared you now feels like peace, and peace feels like power. You no longer collapse when no one claps. You no longer break when no one comes. Because you've learned the one lesson that changes everything: you don't need them. You have you. This is the Stoic way. To live with clarity, to move with discipline, to hold silence as strength, to become so self-contained that the world can't shake you, no matter how loud it gets. That's the freedom everyone is searching for, but few ever find. And once you find it, everything changes. When you finally accept that no one is coming to rescue you, everything changes. The pain that once broke you becomes your blueprint. The silence that once haunted you becomes your teacher. The solitude that once felt like exile becomes your strength. And from that point forward, you are no longer fragile. You are sovereign. No longer begging, you are building. No longer waiting, you are moving. You are no longer chained to their approval because you've learned the most liberating truth of all. You don't need it. This is where freedom lives. This is where real power begins. Not in being seen, not in being understood, but in choosing yourself again and again until your life becomes untouchable. So let this not just be another video you watch and forget. Let it be a turn.